Janelle Davidson. I am from Atlanta, Georgia, originally from Detroit, Michigan. I've been practicing now for 15 years, and I am a solo practitioner for 11 years, open cold, in the middle of economic downturn. So when I opened my practice, I was planning everything, and then 2009, 2010, the economy tanked, and I survived. And recently, I relocated my practice to a mixed-use, very progressive area, so that way I can really dive into my passion. About 5 to 6 years ago, I started to dedicate a portion of my practice to dry eye. And in 2018, I started a dry eye spa in my practice where I collaborate with the esthetician, and we do dry eye-based services in a spa setting. And so when I relocated my practice, instead of my spa being an afterthought in my practice, it was the forefront of my practice. So it was the driving force as I relocated, how I determined my demographic, where I was gonna move. I only really had to move about 5 miles from my previous practice, and the demographic really changed. And so in that 1 year that I moved, which was in 2020, another traumatic time, pandemic. And then I survived the pandemic, and this is actually, last year was the best year that I've had in the 10 years that I've been open. And I'm still on the trajectory to do really well this year. And I learned in the 15 years that you have to follow your passion. You know, there's a lot that optometrists can do, and that's one reason why I got into the field. But, you know, sometimes you can get overwhelmed when you try to be everything for everybody. And so I really dive into my passion, which makes me happy, allows me to work smarter, not harder. And so I only see 10 patients a day, and I work 8 to 4 and a half a day on Wednesday, and 2 Saturdays a month, only half day. And so I can see my kids and enjoy my life as I go through the 40s. And so prepare for those latter days. I know, yeah. I have a LASIK too, so it makes it even harder. But so I'm just really excited to be here today and to connect with the other women here that are here at the conference today. And that's it.
Said this, but it's so fun to kind of be all LinkedIn people and like follow and like, and now I feel like we all just became fast friends, which is really exciting. So I'm originally from Colorado, went to Nova in Florida, met a boy, did a residency at Bascom, and then bought into a private practice. And then when I had my first son, got really into myopia management. I've been into scleral lenses since graduation. And then obviously technology saw a need, so if one more patient asked me for a copy of their prescription, I was gonna quit. And so wanted a way to fight back and give back to optometry, so created Dr. Contact Lens. And now we've also launched Techify, which is to really technology bring to your practice so we can all be here for a very long time. So that's really my journey, and excited to be here.
My name is Christy Wynn. I've been practicing for almost 16 years in Orlando, and I'm not like these other divas. For that, because I do not own my own practice, I am an independent contractor ever since I got out of school. I remember wanting to have my own practice, but once I got out and I started working, I realized that's really not what I wanted. So being an independent contractor allowed me to have the time doing what I wanted, because my husband's a physician, so I want to be able to, at the drop of whenever he wanted to take a vacation, to just ask those days off and take a 2-week vacation without worrying about having my own practice. With that being said, that allowed me to have a lot of free time to be with my family that I was creating with my 2 beautiful girls, so we do a lot of traveling. But I started my journey on social media. And that really opened up a lot of doors. I mean, I'm kind of one of those oddballs who I model for a independent eyewear line called Kazuku Lunettes. It's made out of Japan. I also am the Director of Business Development for a company called OptoZoom, which offers online supplies to your office. I am also the U.S. ambassador for a new magazine called Imagine M, which features international eyewear. I'm also on the board member of, it's called Cooking Magazine, so it's an Asian Pacific magazine about optometry based out of Asia. And I couldn't tell you what it stands for now, but it's you have to find out. But that's basically my journey. So I took a different route, not owning my own practice, not having a specialty, but sharing about optometry to basically educate your patients. So that's where I'm sharing about optometry. So I'm happy about that. Thanks.
Good evening, everyone. So my name is Canto-Sims. I was born in Chicago, and when I was in 5th grade, my parents retired to go live in Puerto Rico. So I finished optometry school in Puerto Rico. My husband went to ICO in Chicago and did a residency because he loves speaking Spanish, even though he's from Idaho. It's a really long story. I'm giving you the short version. And we met there. Our goal was always to have private practice to serve the Spanish-speaking community because we understood that it was very underserved, especially in Chicago. So that was our goal, and so we moved to Chicago. Our goal was to open our own practice. So I've been in the industry 25 years. We opened Buena Vista Optical, and while I was in the optical, I noticed that, so obviously our demographic is Spanish-speaking, so a lot of Latinos, Latinx, indigenous, people of color. And what I noticed was that a lot of the eyewear did not fit my patients. It just didn't look attractive, it didn't come in colors that were attractive, and it just didn't fit well. And I went on a journey on Vision Expo to try to find eyewear that fit my patients and looked nice. And I spoke with the designer, and he basically, I said, do you have frames that maybe are wider, not as deep? And he's like, no, that's hideous. I would never design that. And I'm like, what? I have an optical filled with patients that would buy this. And he's like, I would never design that, that's hideous. And so I went to we were at Vision Expo, so I went back to the room and I told my husband, can you believe this designer said this to me? And my husband said, you know what, I'm getting really sick and tired of you complaining. He said another word, but I'm gonna be, so you either do something about it or stop. And I was like, well, what am I supposed to do? He's like, I don't know, figure it out, Google it, I don't care. But figure it out and stop complaining about it. So that's where La Vida Eyewear was born. So La Vida Eyewear is another business that we have. It's the fusion of the love of fashionable eyewear with all things Latino heritage and culture. So you see the love of Latino heritage inside every frame that we have. So we are available in our practice. Loretta has it in her practice. We're in Mexico, Puerto Rico, and that's our second baby. I have 2 sons, which are now teenagers. One of them just left 3 weeks ago to the Air Force to be a firefighter. And I have another one that's a professional trumpet player, a jazz trumpet player that leaves next year. Empty nesting is a thing, guys. Especially when you go home every night and you cook and, make them a meal and then they leave and you're like, so yes, and so if you have any tips for empty nesting for me, please come talk to me because I need them.
I am not Deanna Canto-Sims, but I am from Chicago. I'm Millicent Knight, sometimes called Millie. I'm good with either one. And my journey actually did start in practice. I started in a hospital-based optometry ophthalmology practice back at a time when ophthalmologists and optometrists were in vigorous fights over territory and who could do what. But I was fortunate to find an office, a practice where the younger ophthalmologists had trained at the Indian Health Reservations with optometry residents. And he said, look, I trained with optometry residents. I know what you all know how to do. Yeah, the optometry residents that were there with me were better than some of the ophthalmologists. So I want you practicing to the fullest extent of your capabilities so I can practice to the fullest extent of mine. I want you don't call me to take out any foreign bodies, do any pre-ops, post-ops, nothing. So that's how I started practicing, and I spent about 4 years doing that. And I had some slow learners because I took the same foreign bodies out of the same people on a regular basis that all worked in the steel mill. Now I took their safety glasses off, but anyway, and so I got used to practicing that way, but unfortunately, we didn't have a therapeutic bill in Chicago at that time, so that's when I really got very active in advocacy and going to legislators and talking about the importance of optometrists being able to fully utilize their capabilities. I also wrote the hospital privileges for optometry because they didn't have any prior to that. So anyway, optometrists and ophthalmologists could not own a business together in Chicago at that time. That has since changed, in case you want to do that. But so I bought a practice from a retiring optometrist. I was 30, he was 70. We were about as opposite as you can imagine, but what we were in lockstep on was our philosophy on patient care. And he worked with me. I bought the practice and hired him back. We were quiet about it because it was in an all-white neighborhood, and his patients, may or may not have been receptive to me. I didn't know, but we just never told anybody, and so all I cared about was they paid their bill. Yeah. But the nice thing about it is that we were able to work well together for those 10 years. I re-energized him. He otherwise would have retired, and we built a really strong practice. I bought a building, a multi-purpose building down the street. We moved the practice into that building with a pharmacist and other businesses, and I owned that practice for 20 years. During that time, I also consulted for a number of companies in industry because philosophically, I didn't think that it made sense for companies to develop products and services for our patients without our input. And so I started giving my input, and then that's how I actually ended up in industry. I had no ambition at all of going into industry. But I did a lot of work for J&J, and that's where I started, and I worked with Barbara Ford there. And I did that for, I don't know, maybe 4 years, and then I went to student shoot, counting up the numbers, going, good God, and so now I was a vice president of professional relations for J&J, and now I'm a senior vice president of customer development. And it's called customer development because my team is responsible for sales training, so you all are their customers. And we also do all of the eye care professional training, anything across the board. We're responsible for key opinion leaders, we're responsible for professional relations, we're responsible for advocacy, and I'm also on the senior management team for North America.
Amazing. If you're a student, I'll be talking to one of these ladies at some point tonight to get some of their wisdom. Okay, so we have a few questions that we're going to talk about tonight. And the way we're going to do this is basically I'm going to ask the question, and then if you have an answer, you can answer it. We can go around and have everybody answer it, but we'll start with, let's just go around and everybody get their, 2 cents in there, right? All right. So in your opinion, what is the biggest challenge facing women ODs in the field at present, right now? What would you say? In about 30 seconds.
Being heard.
I have to agree with that. But I guess if it was individual to me, I would say as women, sometimes we have challenges with work-life balance and self-care.
For me, I would just say, personally, I don't have any. I feel like my patients treat me just the same as my colleagues. But I know that for a lot of people, like she was saying, it's the work-life balance is the hardest because you feel so guilty leaving your kids, working, and then trying to balance being a wife at the same time.
I'll second that, but I also have a quick story because I pitched to a bunch of big companies, and I walked into a room to pitch Dr. Contact Lens, and it's me and my co-founder Jen, and they go, so what do you think of the first icebreaker? What do you think will happen to optometry that 70% of you guys graduating are women? I was like, well, what do you think's gonna happen? Like, you're talking to 2 women that own businesses that started a company. Like, do we have a problem? Little to say that, they said that we should walk before we run, so you never tell a start with that, or a woman. So really, it's breaking those barriers and getting our voices heard in larger companies. It's really where we all can work together. So keep kicking ass.
Second that.
I prepared an answer, and that was exactly it. Equality and representation will make up 70% of the graduating classes, and in these boardrooms, in the decision-making rooms, technology, doesn't mean that we don't have the ideas or the capability, we're just not given the opportunity. So when we talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion, or diversity, inclusion, and equity, it doesn't just necessarily mean race and ethnicity, it's gender as well. Optometry is very lopsided. You know, our graduating classes are women, and we are bosses, we're divas, so we're pregnant, multiple children. I had 2 C-sections in the 10 years that I started my practice, and didn't have a fill-in for 4 weeks. I had to call my mother in to finish so I couldn't even put my baby in daycare because my gynecologist was like, you're not going back to work. I said, lady, I own my own business. Yes. If I can walk, I'm going to work. You know, and that's what I did in 4 weeks. And so to her point, it doesn't matter that we are females. It just matters that we have the drive, the ambition, and we just need the equality and to be able to have the opportunity to give the representation because we are here. Most of us are in this room today.
Good stuff, right? Okay, so the next question is, in your opinion, what are the most critical changes that we must make to face the future of eye care, to face the future of the eye care industry effectively? What are changes that we must make, right? Because if there's challenges, we have to start by making the changes ourselves to address the challenges. So in your opinion?
We're going to have to step up. We're going to have to step up, and we're going to have to plan. We're going to work our plan. We cannot depend on someone else to fix the issues in optometry. We have to fix them ourselves. We can't waste time itching about things.
Yes.
We need to use that time and energy because we got all these other things going on. You don't have any time to do that. You got kids, you got this, you got that. You don't have time to do that. You have to use the little time you have to come up with a plan to get out in front of a lot of the disruption out there because it's not going to change. It is going to continue to evolve. It's going to continue to change, but we have the power to control that change, to get out and own the change, and that's what we need to do.
Well, after being in this conference, again, I'm going to speak for myself personally, right? Myopic management ortho-K clinic is what I got from being here today. No, on a serious note, I really believe that it's important that we find our niche as optometrists. Whatever your passion is, if it is myopia control, if it is dry eye, if it is a spa, whatever it is that you're passionate about, find that niche and go for it. Because the reality is, the industry is changing, right? And one of the things that I learned today that was very impactful and one of those aha moments for me was that sometimes we complain, iMed gives me $40 for an eye exam. You know what? Get over it. Do something about it. Like my husband says, just get over it. Do something about it. And start that passion that you have. If it is ortho-K, if it is dry eye, if it is pediatrics, make yourself unique. Find that unique proposition for your practice that's going to stand out and make you the best eye doctor, the best optometrist in your area, and you will have a waiting list of patients and you can charge what you're worth and you can work when you want.
Again, I don't come from the same background. I'm going to say lead by example. That's where I come in. My strong point is I lead by example on social media. I know there are other doctors in here who are very, prominent on social media, and that's how we can bring our voice to educate people, to let them know what our profession is capable of doing. So that's it. Before I get into
So my favorite saying is the disruptees, meaning us in this room, can and will become the disruptors, but we have to take action. And we have to invest in our practices. So when you're talking to vendors, you have to, now I'm on this side of it, right? So now I'm a salesperson, right? Trying to sell to optometrists. It's really frustrating, guys, because if you can break it down and look at an ROI on what your staff is doing on really basic tasks that none of them like to do, you've got to automate things. There's no reason we shouldn't be making $250,000, $300,000 utilizing our own databases. Our intellectual property, our IP, is our patient data. And we're just giving this away for free to get a 2% rebate. Stop. You've got to go and mine this yourself and get these lovely staff members. They are so important. And if you don't invest in them and getting them doing better things with their time, then we are tripping over literally $1.55 an hour to pick up $5, right? Or we're tripping over $5 to pick up $1. So that's where we have to work together and really move the profession forward, because you have the tools to actually take these big companies down that are taking our patients. And you can't give up on a certain percentage of patients either. So our MVPs are our contact lens patients. So if we let those go, our myopia clinic's gone, our dry eye clinic's gone, our aesthetics clinic is gone. And so it's super important that we remember that and to take care of the patient and start with the patient in mind and becoming patient-centric, and also understand the term of healthcare consumer. All of our patients start as a patient and they end up as a consumer. And everybody else looks at our patient like a consumer. So remember that when you're in the optical, and then just becoming patient-centric.
I agree with that. My answer was that overall, optometrists, we have an inability to accept change and technology. A lot of times we are slow to adapt, and a lot of my colleagues are in various healthcare fields. And I see how they open their practices maybe 5, 6, even 10 years after me, and they surpass a lot of other colleagues and even myself. And I'm like, how are you doing this? Investing in marketing, accepting technology, realizing that there are going to be disruptors, and not fearing it, figuring out how you can either get ahead of it or do something in your practice, or how you're practicing to be able to set yourself apart. And so one is technology. She's saying that really in your practices nowadays, everything really should be virtual. You know, you shouldn't really have patients filling out paperwork. They should be having virtual check-ins. Everything should be computerized or software-based. I didn't mention it, but I developed software in my office, my husband and I, because we were having issues with efficiency, taking time to calculate charges for glasses and lenses. It's very archaic how we come up with a patient's charge for their glasses in most cases. A lot of practices that we talk to as we're launching our software are pulling out sticky notes and calculators. And a lot of people or staff that are hired, everybody doesn't necessarily have to go pretty high in math. And sometimes you get 2 negatives, you gotta know that you add and don't subtract. And so that thing right there would change.
Do you give a math test?
It doesn't matter. Because sometimes when you have the patient in front of you, you're making these calculations, it can make it intimidating. And so just overall accepting technology, understanding that the world is going to change. As I tell patients, yes, you can still wear ActiView 2, but why? I can go get a flip phone and use it, but why? Have you tried to text on a flip phone? And so patients are like, I get it. Or you're wearing Hubble, it's not comfortable. Okay, that's from 1982. So things advance, and if we don't advance with technology and figure out how we can incorporate that into our practice, or find gaps in our industry and make things happen instead of complaining. I mean, one time I complained about something and Millie said, well, do something about it. And I was like, what? Do you know what she told me? I was just hurt. And so then it took about 2 weeks and I was like, what? I'm gonna do something about it. And so as your husband did, when you hear that, you gasp, but then you realize, you know what? Nobody's gonna change things for you or change your life. You have to decide if you want to change. And if you want to, you'll find the time, despite the kids, the husband, to figure it out. And that's what optometrists we need to do. Nobody is going to figure out for us. We need to figure out for ourselves, and we need to learn to collaborate and stop reinventing the wheel.
Hold that microphone. All right. So
something funny.
Oh, okay.
What is the funniest or craziest patient encounter you ever had?
So, this particular patient came in. So I go in the room, it was an emergency visit. He was complaining of a red eye. I was swollen and irritated, and we worked him in. I was already behind, so I go in the room and I'm like, hey, I'm Dr. Janelle. I go by Dr. Janelle. I'm like, tell me what's going on, what's making your eye red? He goes, yeah, doc, I think I got doo-doo in my eye. And I said, excuse me? Can you repeat that? He was like, yeah, I got doo-doo in my eye. I'm like, are you referencing fecal matter that you've got in your eye? And he said, yeah. And I'm like, so how did you get, he goes, oh yeah, doc, I'm sorry, I moved porta potties. And something splashed from the porta potty and got into my eye. And I was red and swollen. And I'm just like, okay, what? And go in. And so so it was a running joke. I went out and told the staff, and I was like, you guys know what was in the eye, foreign body? I was like, yeah, he got poop in his eye. And so I'm like, what? I was like, exactly, that's what I said, okay. What? And so, any patients that move porta potties, tell them to put on safety glasses. So
we've all had that male encounter that's like super awkward, right? So I'm ready to put drops in one of these guys' eyes, and he goes, honey, all I gotta do is look at you, and my eyes dilate. Where is my atropine?
So mine was when, before I was a doctor, I was a tech because I want to make sure I got the feel for what we represent as optometrists. So I signed up as a tech, and I remember it was my first INR, stands for insertion removal contacts. So it was this woman, she wanted to try color contact lens. Of course, I didn't know how to do it, so I'm standing there right next to my manager who's giving the instructions. And this lady's going in to put her contact lens in, and her eye pops out into her head. She didn't pause, she popped it right back in. Me and the manager's looking there like, and we couldn't say anything because we're trying to be professional. She's putting contacts on. Because she said, oh, it happens. I'm just like, okay. We just continued on, and then after she left, we were like, oh my God, yeah, that was my account. So yeah, I still continue to do it.
So mine as well was as a student. So I think once I graduated, I was able to regain my power, and nothing like that happened again. So it was in fourth year, it was my last year, I was doing a rotation. This was in Puerto Rico, and it was in a clinic that was like low income clinic, and I loved it. The patients were very appreciative. But this one particular day, the receptionist comes up to me, she goes, you're not gonna believe this, but there's this guy, and he's like in the mafia, and he is your patient, and he's killed so many people, and he's coming with his 2 bodyguards, and I don't know why he's here, because he has a lot of money. And so he lied on the application, and he's getting this free eye exam, and we already know he has cataracts. He doesn't want to hear it. The last time a student said that he needed cataract surgery, he like exploded, and he's coming for a second opinion. And I'm like I was like 80 pounds lighter and really naive. So she tells me, so just be careful. And I'm like, okay. And so this guy comes in, he was like 7'2". He comes in, one bodyguard is in the outside of the room, the other bodyguard is right behind him. And I'm trembling, and I do the eye exam, and of course he needs cataract surgery. And I'm like, how do I tell him? How do I tell him? And you know, I put my hand on my heart, I'm like, you know, and I tell him, and he's like really serious, and I'm like, and he goes, you know what? You're not the first person to tell me this. I understand, I just wanted a second opinion. I'm like, oh, okay. So he brings out this roll of money, like a lot. And he goes, I want to give you this as a gift. And I'm like, oh, no, I'm okay. you're good. This is a free clinic. And he's like, no, 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 take it. And I'm like, no, no, no. He's like, no, take it. And I'm like, no. And so I freaked out. I ran out of there, like almost screaming. And I told the receptionist, he's screaming at me. Because he became very violent. He's like, take the money. And I'm like, no. And so I ran and I told the receptionist, she's like, just go, I'll take your purse. Go to the parking lot, just leave. So I'm running to the parking lot, she brings back my purse. It gets better. So I leave and I'm like sweating, trembling, and I'm like, oh, I'm not going back there. And she's like, yeah, you probably should not come back here because we know he's killed so many people. And he's like a legend in that town. And I'm like, no, we're gonna change your rotation, don't worry about it. So I get home, I open my purse, and he had put the roll of money inside my purse when I ran out of the exam room. So I ran out of the exam room, my purse was still in the exam room, he threw the money in there, and then I ran out to the parking lot, the receptionist gave me my purse, I come home and I see this pack of money. So, and I'm like really poor because I owe like $140,000 in student loan. So not including my husband's loan. But anyway, I called the clinic and I'm like, listen, this is what happened. And I counted the money, it was like almost $3,000. And the clinic goes like, we don't want that, keep it. And I'm like, really? And they're like, we don't want it. And I'm like, so should I take it to the police? And I'm like, no, because then you have to say where you got it. No, just keep it. Just don't tell anyone, just keep it. And I'm like, okay. And that's my story.
My story is not really that interesting. You would not have had to tell me that many times. So my story is really for probably the students and newer graduates. Okay, because this happened at the very beginning of my career, and the moral of it is learn to ask the right questions. So I asked the patient, sat down in the chair, had the chart up, I said, cover your left eye, read the smallest line that you can see. Show him the chart, it says, and I said, brought it up a little bit larger, read the smallest line that you can see, read what you can see there. No, can't do that. Finally I said, I put the big E up and I said, can you see that? And he said, oh, I can see all of them, I just can't read. So just ask the right question. Can I just add something that's unrelated to this, not necessarily funny, but what you've been hearing up here is all of these women have taken calculated risks. And I think that's really the theme for me. You have to be willing to take calculated risk. And I'm saying calculated because you don't want to do anything that's reckless, but you know, in 2008 when the economy collapsed, everybody else was panicking, I gutted my office and redid it. Labor was cheap because you got to look at the economics of it. Labor was cheap. I was able to build it into a complete medical model practice at that time. When I went in to buy my building, you know, because things have changed, so you need to know the history of women trying to go into different areas within this industry. I was asked, I had an almost perfect credit score. I had the money in the bank for the down payment. And so then they asked me, well, are you planning on getting married? Wow. Are you going to have any children? And I don't know any man that's ever been asked that when they went into the bank for a loan. So we've come a ways, but we still have, you know, more barriers that we have to get through, but those are the types of things that I had to deal with just to try and get a building. And ended up having to get an attorney in order to close on the building.
Wow.
As a successful woman in your career, You must have a very full schedule. Does your family ever feel left out or neglected? Or do you sometimes feel guilty because because of your schedule requirements? If so, how do you handle such challenges, or how would you recommend other divas to handle these particular challenges?
I'm not going to talk about myself. I had a boss when I first came into industry. I mean, I thought my life was busy when I was in practice, but it's really got crazy there. And she was a female president of the company. I'll tell you her name, Laura Angelini. And she would say, Millie. But she said, look, because I asked her, I said, how do you handle the guilt, you know, from all the travel we do and everything? And she said, I don't have any. And I said, how do you not have any? And she said, look, I need to be happy in order to be a good wife and a good mother to my son. And mommy needs to work. That fulfills me. And if I'm not fulfilled, I can't be my best self for them. So they understand that now. But if they don't, they have to learn how to understand it, because that's how I'm going to conduct myself, and that's how I make peace with what I do.
Love it. Absolutely. I really have to reiterate that, because so the reason that I went into private practice was to be independent so that nobody would set my hours. And what I suggest that you do is that you pick your battles. If we all have battles, right? Some of us have children, some of us have 7, some of us have 1. You know, some of us, you know, have hobbies. Yeah, some of us has hobbies. And the reality is that you do not have to do everything. Okay, that's number 1. You don't have to do everything. If you don't like doing the laundry, don't do the laundry. Get someone to do the laundry, like your kids. That's what I did. So pick your battles. And when you pick those battles, analyze them and pick even less battles. And pick the battles that matter to you. And something that we would do, and this is just a suggestion if you want to copy it, we would meet twice a year. We would get in, my family would meet at the dinner table, and we would do something that Brene Brown, who knows who Brene Brown is? She studies shame, and she's amazing. We would do an exercise that was called play. What is play for you? And so everyone in the family would say and share what is play for them. And it was very interesting, because what I found out was I didn't have to take my kids to soccer all the time, because they hated soccer. But everybody else had their kids in soccer, and my kids had to exercise, so I have to take them to soccer, and they hated soccer. And then I was in a bad mood. They were in a bad mood. Nobody wanted to play soccer, but society says kids got to do sports. They didn't want sports. They wanted to do other things. They didn't like Disney. They were sick and tired of Disney. I know. And it was like shocking. It's like, wait, so all this stress of trying to go to Disney, and like, it was nice the first 5 times, but we're over it. We'd rather do something else. So Disney, X. And we ended up making a list of what is our playlist, what we absolutely love doing. And then we planned the year, and we only included the things that were important to us, that were of value to us. It didn't matter what other people thought, what other families did, because it was unique to us. So forget about what other people think. You do you for you, because that is what is important.
So going off of that a little bit, we all just have 24 hours in a day. So you have to prioritize what's the most important thing you need to get done that day, and just do it that way. So there should be no guilt by the end of the day. With how busy my schedule is, I mean, I only work 4 days a week, but still, I have so many things I have going on the side that I literally cannot fit all of that on my schedule and still be a good wife and still be a good mom by the end of the day. So that's my best advice to you, is prioritize. And again, just like she said, if you can't do it, delegate it. You don't have to do everything, and it's okay that you don't do everything. And just know that you need to take time for yourself. I mean, about 4.5 years ago when before I started my entrepreneur journey, I was so unhappy. I was like in a rut. I was in this like like a hamster wheel, just going through the motions of seeing patients, but I wasn't happy. And I just felt like the drive was out, but that's what I didn't realize. I didn't have the time for myself. I would just go to bed each night going, man, I wish I had more time just for me. I put all my time to work, all my time to volunteer, all my time to be a good wife, a good mom. But like I said, in the day, I'm drained. So, gosh, I can't get emotional.
It's okay, because we all are.
But yeah, you just have to prioritize what's important for you. So just do that.
So one thing is obviously delegation, and I think us being strong women in probably all A personalities here, it's hard to delegate. What I learned about delegation was when I had my first son, was I actually defined it. So I said, if somebody does something 51% of the way I would have done it, it is a win and it's done, right? And then I found, right? And then I found the book Traction very recently. What is like changed my life on really setting priorities and sticking to it. What? Gino Wickman. And really empowering people around you to help you, because they do want to help you. And then the mommy guilt, I love what you said. I had recently watched the movie On the Basis of Sex, which is about Ruth Bader Ginsburg. If you haven't watched it, I was on a flight home, and I always clean the house before I'll go on a trip, just so I can come back, right? So I watched this movie, and I walk in the door, and the house is just a shit show. And Josh, he goes, well, you were gone for 4 days. And I was like, and I just watched this movie of like this incredible woman that like just broke barriers everywhere. And I was like, are you kidding me right now? So it really, the household, it all has to come together, and it really is a team effort. So you just obviously have to learn to say no, which is hard for a lot of us, and just keep that support system around you with strong women, and we're all going through the same thing. So.
So I was thinking hard over here, not to repeat what everybody else has been saying, but yeah, I was in the same spot you were about 5 years ago, and I'm like, did I really go into debt for this? I know optometry is more than this. It's just that you keep going, you go, and you hit a wall. And then you get 40, and you're like, wow, is this what my rest of my life is going to look like? 1 or 2, which is better. And I told her eventually I got to the point I didn't care. I was going to take that phoropter and throw it through the wall. And so I said, there's no way I can keep doing this for the next, till I'm 60 plus, which I'm retiring early. And so I realized that you have to do what makes you happy. Even in a field that has so many opportunities, you go to a lot of these lectures, you hear all these things that you should be doing, what is going to be standard of care. And if you think that you have to walk away and implement every single one of those things on Monday, you would be overwhelmed very fast. And so I learned to take things back from conferences and colleagues that I meet, but really dive into my demographic, what makes me happy, because that's what's going to allow you to keep going in no matter what setting you're in. I actually did what you're doing for 2 years. So my practice is, the LOC is 10 years old, but for 2 years, I contracted myself out. And so that's how I got to meet a lot of people in the Atlanta area. So once you figure out what makes you happy, then you realize that your circle diminishes. You don't have to be with everybody. You don't have to keep up with everybody. And then you learn how to infuse. I think I was speaking to Loretta on a podcast or something. It's not balancing it at all. Balancing is nearly impossible. It's just infusion. So my kids, as your mentor stated, Millie, knows what mommy does and knows that because of mommy's job, I can't be everywhere. My parents were not at everything for me, and I turned out okay. And the things that are important, where I think are milestones, mommy is going to be there. And my kids are totally okay with that. My kids are 9 and 12, and my practice is 11 years old. And so there are times where I can't be there, and my kids are okay with that. And there are times where they're at the practice with me, helping me move from one location, remodel the practice. Even this summer, both of my kids were paid employees, junior interns in my practice, doing legit work, clocking in, clocking out. Yes, and it helped. And it was a practice builder. I got new patients because they're like, who are these kids in scrubs and Crocs? Oh my gosh. And so I actually got them. And so it's all about infusion, not necessarily balance. You know, my husband works in the practice. He quit his corporate America job and came in January. And so when you own a business, whether it's a practice or restaurant, you know, everybody's got to be all in. And you've got to learn how to infuse that into your life. And the people that won't infuse, and sometimes it may be cousins, sisters, moms, aunts, then you just have to diminish that circle so that way you're able to have your peace and have no regrets.
I have one. So we keep hearing like find your niche, right? And we hear that from like the very first day of optometry school, right? Raise your hand if you haven't found your niche, and don't be shy. Right? So it took me 6 to 7 years to really find my niche. So I think we hear that a lot and we get upset if we haven't found it yet. So just keep striving for that, because it's really important that you do, and don't give up on that. It's not easy to find it. So, but we all think that it is because that's what everybody says, but it's really not.
All right. And the only thing I'll add to that is that a lot of these doctors here do own their own businesses. And if you don't own your own business, you may think this does not apply to me. But I would like to challenge you and have you think that you do own your own business yourself. You are your own business. Wherever you work, the job that you do, that's your business because it represents you. So it's not just having an entity, but you yourself is your own business. So you need to become the CEO of you. That's very important for you to do, and then you can take it to other places. All right, last question. As an industry thought leader nominee, you have achieved a significant level of success in your career. What has helped you get to where you are? And what advice would you give to the rest of us, or those of us who would like to set off in a similar direction?
Unexpected answer, but I'm going to say prayer. I do a lot of it. Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. I do. I'm a big planner. You know, I do the 1 year, 3 year, 5 year, 10 year, and then you got to go back sometimes and reiterate because sometimes it's not right. And you need to work with your head, but you also need to work with your gut. And that's the one advantage that women in business have over, I'm going to say over the divos out here, maybe, is that we use our gut. We check in, and that's not always considered to be a popular thing when you're in business, but your gut doesn't lie.
No.
And it gives you really good information. So if you connect the two, then you can't go wrong.
So I'm going to say that if you thought your studies were done when you graduated optometry school, I'm here to tell you that you still have a lot to learn. So the suggestion that I give you, so when we decided to open a practice, I realized that optometry school didn't really teach me how to run a business. And we were clueless because it was my husband and I. And so I said, I don't really want to go to business school, so what can I do? So it's funny because my husband opened up the credit card statement and there was an ad there for a program called, take note, the Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Businesses Program. And it said, are you a business owner struggling with your business? You want to learn more about marketing, and this is a free program if you qualify. And my husband ran to me and said, you should do this. And I'm like, what? He's like, you should do this. And I'm like, why me? And he's like, well, you do the marketing, you should do this. And I remember I called and we qualified, and it is a free program if you qualify. Loretta is an alumni. Yes, so we have a couple of alumni here that have gone through the program. It is, I don't know how many modules, but it really changes your mindset when it comes to your business. Because the reality is in optometry school, I mean, maybe they teach something now, but what I was taught was like maybe 1 or 2 classes. And it really made you think about your business. The other thing, I also did a Stanford graduate business school scaling program for my business that completely changed my mindset to the point where I graduated in 2019. It was free as well. I said, if it's free, it's for me. And 2019, December of 2019, I graduated. And while I was doing the program, my practice grew 20%. Then boom, the pandemic hit. And I'm like, oh, what are we gonna do? And no, I'm gonna implement everything that I learned on this program. That year in 2020, our practice grew 30%, even though we were closed for 2 months, because I completely shifted everything we were doing in our business. My mindset shifted, the way we see patients shifted, our processes and procedures changed, the way we hired and fired changed, everything changed. So if you're struggling with your business, there are solutions, but you have to take charge. The other thing that I do is I read at least 2 to 3 books a month. Now, I don't really read them. I use Audible. So here's the thing. I live in Chicago, and the commute could be 45 minutes or it could be 2 hours, depending on the day and the time. It's very unpredictable. So I could listen to the top 10 hits and dance my way home, or I could listen to a self-development book or a business book or a spiritual book, something that's going to fill my cup, that will make me be a better person in those 45 minutes or 2 hours. And I'm able to read 2 to 3 books a month, and it's not that hard, and you're going to be a better person. So that's my 2 cents.
So I think the question was your support system, right? So what helped me is, again, just prayer, having faith that this is the path for me, since he put me in this path. It was my calling. But also making sure my family understood that this is what I want to do and how much time it would take for me to do the certain things I needed to do. But if I could just give one advice, is that to some of the students, is start networking early. So this is a little bit different for me because, again, I'm a little bit different. So I would say network early. You just never know who you're going to meet, when you're going to meet them, and how they will change your life. Sometimes you come across somebody who may know somebody that will get you into a position or into a job that could literally be the job for you, but you won't know them unless you talk to them. So, I mean, I'm actually an introvert, so I usually don't talk to people until they talk to me first. But I'm just saying, you just try to talk to at least 1 or 2 people at these conventions you guys go to or these events. Because like I said, you never know how that person, if they came across your life, they're there for a reason. Whether it be a short purpose or a big purpose, you don't know. But they're there for a reason. You got to figure out what that reason is. That would be my advice. Thanks.
Mine is similar. It's planting seeds. All of you are seeing, and all of us in this room are seeing all these seeds that we've planted for years and years and years and years. And you never know which ones are going to sprout. And then they tend to all sprout at the same time, right? And then it's really working on your business as much as you work in your business. And so it's really eliminating some patient care so you can focus on that, because that becomes your very, very valuable time. And that's where you grow. Is doing that. And then a little hack for reading, there's a YouTube channel called The Productivity Game. And it's a 10-minute, and he visualizes the entire book, and then you get like a 1-pager on the book. So business books are where it's at, right? And so that's how we grow everything together. And finding a mentor, right? So we've all had those strong mentors, whether it's female or male. You just never know what doors are going to open for you. So keep striving.
So mine is really simple. I piggyback on all of those because you have to do those things. But when you do those things, things may not fall into play when you want them or when you expect them to. And so I live by 3 things: faith, perseverance, and determination. And no matter what I'm doing, I align myself with those 3 things, because we're all divas, we're all bosses, so we're usually going to do our due diligence. But at the same time, your seed may not sprout for 10 years. And so therefore, if you're not faithful, if you're not perseverant, and if you're not determined, you may fall off the path or veer from the path and miss your blessing. So you're going to do all that, but I only live by 3 things.
Did you guys learn something? Everybody gleaned something here? Does anybody have a burning question that you just want to ask one of the ladies in here? A burning question. Yes?
So I don't know. I know that I come in not very stressed because it's not my practice, but the difference is I'm a very big go-getter. Even if it's not my practice, I treat it as my practice. I go in the mindset that it is mine. I train the staff as if they were mine. I explain everything as if it was mine. I've been in your shoes. So I have been a tech for 2 years prior to going to optometry school. I know what the techs go through. So I know, so I come and I personally train the techs. When they have a question, I'm like, let me come and talk to you. I'll pull them right aside, and I explain why it's not done correctly. And they appreciate that because they're like, nobody ever took the time to explain. I was like, well, that's because I've been in your shoe and I didn't understand it then. So if somebody had explained it that way, it totally would help me. But the thing is, once the tech understood, guess what? My exams become more efficient. And now I become a better physician and I don't have to do the tech work because I was doing tech work and doctor, and that slows me down. Even if it's not my practice, I do help the current owner because, again, I want the practice to be efficient. He was on paper charts, people. I'm like, what is going on? He was on paper day sheets. I was like, what is up with this? I went in, I was like, sir, do you mind if I kind of do some stuff to your office? And he totally appreciated it. So I'm just that type of person. But I'm not stressed. At the end of the day, I go home and it's like, oh, look, oh, there's my paycheck. I got to deposit it, and cha-ching, and that was it. I clock out, I go back into work, and for me, working that 4 days is great. When I have to work that 5th day, that takes a little bit more out of me, but sometimes if I want that vacation, I'm gonna take that 5th day, you know what I'm saying? But for the most part, 4 days is a good balance for me. I don't get burnt out. I'm a better doctor. I can treat every patient as if they're the first patient I've ever seen. And so I think my care for the patient is better because I feel like, because it's not mine, but it is mine. You see what I'm saying? So it's kind of like a double, yeah. But I love it. I love being an independent contractor.
I spent most of my career in private practice, and I loved practicing. I loved private practice. I loved running the business. I loved all of the parts of it. But it's not for everybody. It is not for everybody, and that's okay. You need people who have our degrees and our experiences to be deans, to be presidents, to be faculty members, to be research and development, to be in the industry, supporting and making sure that the right products and services are coming out to our patients. So there's something for everyone to do. Find your niche, where you can bring your best self, and that's probably going to be the best situation for you.
Ladies and gentlemen, our nominees for Thought Leader of the Year. Give them a round of applause. Ladies, thank you. You can go back to your seats. Thank you so much. That was very insightful.